All right. I love the vibe going on there. And my Pendleton mug looks pretty good. So in my last video, I talked about having 2 remote 6-figure jobs at the same time and how I used that to parlay into investments that were gonna set me up for financial freedom, how it changed my life, and the response was amazing. The comments were overwhelmingly positive and it was fun reading them, even the trolls and all the messages I got everywhere. I appreciate all of you and I hear all of you. And I know a lot of people out there are sitting there miserable at their job and they're looking for a way out, and getting a second job could be a way to get ahead so they can make investments and do their own thing. So I thought in this video, I would sit down and answer some of the top questions that I got, either on the comments of the video themselves or through Instagram or email or everything else. And I thought I'd get a list of the top questions and answer them in this video. So let's just jump into it. Question number 1, I currently can't go remote with my job. How do I go about doing this? Well, you have the wrong job. The things that I said, my story, or other people's story that you might hear, or just thinking about it, everybody's on their own timeline and everybody is in their own position. If you don't have a remote job, you can't go remote, then that's the part of the timeline that you're on and you need to change over. You need to start looking at a new resume. You need to start thinking about what are my strengths, what can I do, and you need to find a remote job. And we'll talk about how to do that. You need to go find a remote job before doing anything else. That is a big step because you're also gonna be rethinking what you're gonna do. I'll get into more details about that in a little bit. So next question, I don't have experience, where do I start? So I'm gonna use this analogy in this video, but it's kind of a timeline or a lifeline, whatever you want to call it. And everybody is at a different point, depending on what their education is, what their experience is, even what their personality is. We're all at a different place. And it could be that you need to start by getting your finances in order. It could be that you need to move in with your parents and you need to reset everything. It could be that you need to get out of the bad relationship, whatever it is. Everybody's in a different place. Some people are already working remotely and have a good situation. Maybe they've outsourced it, or maybe it's only costing them a couple hours a week. You're set up to go ahead and get that resume ready and get the second position. Now, other people, they're working at a car dealership or whatever it is and they're miserable or they want to do something else. So you need to find out where you are in the timeline, whether it be just getting finances in order, starting from scratch, or whether it be getting a resume ready and then using your skills to get a remote job, or then getting that second job. Everybody's in a different place. So I would just immerse myself in whatever I was looking to do. Let's say I was interested in possibly seeing what it's like to be a coder. I would just immerse myself for a couple days and see what's available. I would use the power of the internet and YouTube to educate myself. And after a couple days, you'll start to see what's out there. Get on the timeline, immerse yourself in stuff and find something that hits. Remember, this is a patience game, but you need to start and get the wheels in motion ASAP. How long did you do this for? So I did it about a year and then I quit. Well, no, I was going to quit and then I got called into my boss's office and got fired and got a severance. So it just worked out that way. After about a year, I had saved up enough money where I thought I could make enough investments to do passive income enough and get my life going. And I just went back to one job. I didn't quit both. I quit one and then still had another job that was going well. And if you have 2 jobs, you can decide which one you want to quit. After about a year, for my situation, even though I had one mostly outsourced and delegated, it was still a lot and there were still situations that were really tough. So I managed it for a year, but it set me up in the future for the rest of my life, which is why it was important to do. Okay, what do you do when you have 2 meetings at the same time? Good question. And I think I talked about this in my other video, but I had 2 computers and I would have one muted and the other muted, and whenever I had to talk, I would unmute and I would mute and then unmute and mute. And sometimes I would have 2 earbuds connected, one to each computer. In the beginning it was tough, but eventually I got good at it. And to be honest, most meetings you're not talking.
Okay, let me just say real quick. Sometimes in meetings you are talking a lot. In fact, sometimes in meetings you're running the entire meeting. So what do you do? Well, if you're scheduling meetings with customers, you are in control of when that meeting happens for the most part. So give the customer meeting times that work for you.
Now, back to our program.
All right, any issues with tax, W-2s? No, there was no issue. And trust me, I thought about this. It was after I had already signed the contract for the second job. I thought, oh crap, what's gonna happen come tax time? Are they gonna be informed by the IRS that they have 2 jobs? No, there's no problem. There's no legal issue. The government wants as much tax money as they can get. They wish that we would have 25 W-2. The only issues come when you calculate your tax rate. You may get bumped up into a different tax bracket. But to be honest, that couple % difference doesn't account for the extra income that you're gonna have. So don't worry about that. What about double insurance? I just told them that I didn't need insurance in the second job and that was no problem. The first job I had platinum low deductible insurance. I said I want to keep that, and you can have double insurance too. I could have signed up and it would have just been overlapping coverage, but I decided not to, and I also was able to negotiate that insurance portion back into my paycheck. I said I don't need insurance. Can I get half of this back in regular pay? They said sure. Do it at the end. Don't talk about that up front. When they tell you about insurance, nod and say cool. What about LinkedIn for both companies? Okay, this is a huge problem. And not all jobs are created equal, and some jobs are not going to fit the criteria, even if they pay well, even if it works out, it's remote, it's flexible. If the company is following you on LinkedIn, it's just not going to work if both are doing that. If one is doing that, you're fine. If both are doing that, it's not going to work. A lot of companies, even though they say they use LinkedIn, they don't. And unless you're a recruiter or you're an account manager who needs to go hunting for a new business, most remote jobs technically can get away with this. If you're a software engineer and you get a second job and you just never update your LinkedIn, nobody's gonna say anything. And a lot of other jobs are gonna be the same way. Some companies will say something, but some companies won't. And hint, foreign companies a lot of times don't use LinkedIn. That's a little hint. Okay, what about an LLC for this? No, don't worry about using an LLC. Don't set up any new business entity. LLCs are best when you're, well, limited liability company. So they're for limiting liability. It kind of becomes a shield. If you have an Airbnb or certain other income, you can shield it from lawsuits from income or whatever you're doing. Worry about it when you have passive income and you're actually doing other business. And even then, a lot of times you can write off expenditures and everything and you don't need an LLC to do it. So don't worry about it. Okay, did you tell your new employer in the interview process? No. Do not do that. Do not tell them. And the thing is, most people interview and they still have a current job. People ask you, why are you thinking of getting a new position? That's it. Most people interview with a current job. Do not say that. Because if anything goes haywire, you want your current job to fall back on. Just don't tell anybody. I don't have the experience you have. How can I do this? This is actually the same as the second question, I believe. But I will say, just to reiterate, everybody's on a different timeline and you need to work your way up. Think about it as an evolutionary process where you're gonna continually get better and better situations. Think about just starting off by building a resume with what you have and iterate over it and get it better and better and better. People that create products, they don't create one product and it's automatically good. They create a product and then they iterate over it until it's really good. Apply to a million jobs almost as a hobby, interview, and just see what happens. Sometimes something will fall in your lap and it was just right place, right time. This is a big train and we're going all the way to a big goal. We all want the same goal, right? We all want financial freedom. We all want to get out of the rat race, but we're all getting on different stops on that train. We're all in a different place, and just start. The only thing you can compare yourself to, not me, not anybody else that you see, is only yourself yesterday. Just keep going and just fight. Okay, did you have any issues with company laptops or traveling? No, I didn't mingle them. I had 2 laptops, which meant I usually traveled with 3. It was a heavy backpack, but that's okay. I had 2 work laptops and my personal one. Okay. How do you deal with feeling like you aren't worthy of the job? Okay, I definitely have felt like this in my life. You have imposter syndrome or whatever it is. Look, let me tell you something. Unless you're in the STEM field or you're a lawyer or a doctor, the people that are in suits, that are at conferences or in sales, account management, business development, they're just people. They are just people, and you can fake it till you make it. Look, people that have MBAs, okay, a master's of business, the benefits of that was that they immersed themselves with other people who are probably ambitious and doing the same thing. They got contacts, they got networks, and they got some life experience. I can read books and I can do other things that are gonna get me the same thing. I can immerse myself with people who are ambitious, with people who are farther down the line than I am, and it's gonna act like a magnet. It's like that carrot in front of the horse, and that's gonna help me get along, okay? That's gonna be as useful as anything else. If you exude confidence and you play up to your strengths and your experience that you do have, you're gonna be able to play on that and you're gonna get farther and farther. So don't worry about that. I wasn't ready for the job that I had, the second job, but I was thrown in a fire and I hit the ground running and I just went. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I got the second job and things were crazy. I dressed the part, I had confidence, I tried to figure it out, and after a while, I realized that everybody else here is just a person. Now, if you watched the other video, you know that my life got crazy. One way it got crazy was that I had to go to a conference in Boston. Now, this conference in Boston was about databases and whatnot. There were a lot of people there that knew a lot more things than me. And I just hung out, I smiled, I shook people's hand, And before I know it, somebody asked me to speak at this conference because they thought I knew more than I did. I don't know how they got that in their head. I ended up speaking at the conference that Tim Berners-Lee spoke at. Tim Berners-Lee was the founder of the internet. He spoke at this conference and I spoke at this conference. I had about 10 minutes and I had to come up with something, and I went up there and BS my way through this. This really happened. I actually got a mug at the end of it for a thank you for speaking. And you know what? You know why I didn't find out? Because everybody else in the conference was on their own computer not paying attention, and nobody cares because everybody else was just trying to make money and live their own lives. Okay, what specific roles for X sector or Y experience are best? There's too many, and there's so many different places. If you have an IT background or if you have a this or that background, I would suggest going on LinkedIn to the job search and entering some keywords and just playing around. Just start seeing what's out there and you'll see patterns, and then look at what the patterns are and then search those patterns. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo words to say. Go search and see what's out there. Depends on what you have. Did you modify your resume? Yes. Tailor it, work on it. It's a work of art. It depends on the job. I would say to have maybe 3 to 5 resumes depending on the job that you're applying for, because I was applying to different kinds of jobs and seeing what hit. Open your resume and have a couple of them. LinkedIn will save your resume, so if you're using the same one over and over, that's fine, or you can go to previous versions of it. But yes, work on your resume, iterate over it, think about it as something that's constantly getting better. And sometimes, like, I've looked at old resumes that I wrote a year ago, opened them and thought, wow, whoever read this must have known right away that I didn't know what I was talking about. So you gotta work on them. Okay, how did you manage efficiency? I outsource things. That can be done in different ways. I talked about Fiverr. I actually outsourced a lot of stuff on Fiverr, and some people have brought up that there's intellectual property. You do not want to be handing that out to people on Fiverr. I didn't do that. I took subsets of code and gave it to people, and I found that the engineers out there were better than me. Think about things you can automate. Sometimes you can hire things to virtual assistants, and it's inexpensive. Once you jump into that and search about it, you can really automate a lot of things. In fact, there's a lot of other things in your life outside of work that you might be able to automate. I would take a look at that. Okay, I'm a software dev. Would you recommend that or a sales job? It totally depends. And this goes into if you should be getting into account management or business development or sales engineering, whatever it is, and the plethora, the infinite other sectors that are out there. Some devs are out there, they're writing code all day, and some salespeople are doing nothing. Some salespeople are working really hard. They have meetings back to back to back, and some devs are not doing much. Okay, so it totally depends. Not all jobs are created equal. The most important thing here is that your first job that you're gonna get, if you're looking for a second job, is that that is under control, and then start to reach out and find other stuff. It doesn't matter where you look, because you're gonna be able to find different levels of responsibility at different jobs. Did you tell your coworkers about this? Some I actually did that I was close to, but I would recommend not doing that. You should keep your cards close to your chest. Like, I was talking to a recruiter one time, and this guy, it started off so professional, asked me all the right questions, very nervous for me. I was thinking that this guy was a serious guy, and this guy had it all locked in. He seemed like a guy that knew what he was doing. And he said, oh, you're a coder. And I told him that I had written some trading programs for some engineers who were kind of working on a trading algorithm, and I want to get in, so I figure out what I can offer them. And he said, man, that's crazy that you can do that. That's really cool. I wish I could do that. I'm actually looking into getting into coding. And all of a sudden, this recruiter who I had a very kind of nervous, professional, walled up conversation with was now telling me that he was sick of being a recruiter. He didn't like it, and he was looking for something else. And he was actually asking me what he should do with his life.
Would you bear with me for just a second, please? Okay.
Like, people are just people, and we're all trying to figure it out. But you know what? I'm trying to get to that point where I can make enough money, enough passive income, where the investments are paying for themselves, paying for new investments, and I'm able to live the life that I want to live, that I dream of. And it all starts with getting yourself on that path to success. Wherever you are, you just need to get on and go. I don't even know what the question was, but that's how I feel about it. Okay. Next, do you do consulting? I've actually been looking into that. I'm building a website, and I'll mention it in another video and probably in descriptions in future videos where you can contact me. And if you want, we can consult on anything that I am an expert on, whether it be, you know, getting into Airbnb and building houses like in Joshua Tree or other parts of the country, or figuring out what you're gonna do with your life. So yeah. Okay, are you single? Yes, I am. And I don't plan on being single forever. I do want a family, but it just hasn't happened. We're pretty rich. What happened to the girl that said you should be in jail for having 2 jobs? I don't know. The date ended there. I don't know what happened to her. I hope she's happy. Can this be done outside of the tech sector? Absolutely. Remember that the more specialized you are, the more valuable you are. If you're just doing data entry, that's something that people outsource to other people too because it's not specialized. That's why people that drive the massive Caterpillar things that are almost the size of buildings or cranes or whatever make a lot of money, where forklift drivers don't, because it's a lot more specialized. You need to figure out what your strengths are and maybe hone in on that. Tech sector doesn't matter, just that we're using technology to do stuff like this. It's what's enabling this whole thing. Did you add cover letters to the resume when applying on LinkedIn? No, remember this is a game of speed. You need to apply to a bunch of jobs. It's a shotgun approach. It's not a sniper approach. Now, sometimes there is a job where you look at it and you go, oh, that's perfect, where you might want to take some time to write a cover letter or take a template of a cover letter that you have and tailor it to that job and go ahead and submit it. Remember, with LinkedIn Easy Apply, we're trying to apply to a bunch of jobs every day, and it takes patience and it takes knowledge that other people are doing it, and you can do it too. All right. Can you get into more depth on your application strategy? Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. When you go on LinkedIn, dial in your LinkedIn profile, just free account, make sure that everything's good, make sure that what you have on there that recruiters are gonna see is good. You can save your resume on there. And then when you apply, you wanna look at Easy Apply because that's gonna be the fastest thing you can do. I looked at under 10 applicants because I was looking for jobs that people were actually gonna see me at. Either you're getting in early or you're getting to jobs that other people might not be looking at. Maybe other people aren't in the same position as you that want a lower responsibility job that aren't looking for the prestigious job, right? We don't want to be the top executive at Amazon here because that's going to require us to be up at 4 a.m. and working till 11 p.m. We don't want that. By the way, if you're somebody that likes to edit and you want to edit my videos, let me know because I may hire you. All right, I'm working like 50 to 70 hours a week. What are your thoughts on this? Well, there's no way that you could juggle 2 jobs doing this. So you have to ask yourself, is this what I want to do with my life? When I first went remote, a lot of things changed. My mindset changed. In fact, my next video is gonna be about how remote work changed my life by more than just what people talk about. Oh, there's no commute, right? Oh, you don't have to sit in traffic. I can do meetings in my pajamas. Like, it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper than that. It actually changed my mindset and set me up to be where I am and allow me to get to where I want to be. A lot of people work a lot, and that's great. They get out of college and they're working their butt off and they're working so many hours, but for what? Are you just selling your hours to the company? Because if you're getting a salary, you're not getting paid extra to work that extra time if you're up late, unless you care about the organization. If it's something you care about, if it's saving the oceans or something good, but if it's just an organization that you don't actually care about, you're just working, you really need to take inventory on what you're doing. Because if your goal is like me, because I wanted freedom to create my own life, whether it be creating Airbnbs or making videos or all the other projects I have going on, it's something that I wanted to do and I want to create my life. So I had to release myself from that. And so I think if you're working that many hours a week, you need to start getting that resume out and looking at applying to different jobs or going remote so that you can find a way to get out of that job, because that job is something you don't have to do. Technology has made this available to us where we can find other ways to make money, but you gotta start. All right, what is the day-to-day like having 2 remote jobs compared to 1? Busy. Even though one of my jobs was pretty well delegated, having 2 remote jobs, it was intense. It was kind of like 2 sine waves where occasionally they hit and the waves jump up and it was like, wow, this is very intense. Other times it wasn't a big deal. It allowed me to get into what I want to do, make investments, and by the way, no, it's not too late to get into the real estate market. It just means that maybe you should be building instead of buying already built houses and finding places where the price per square foot is really high for resale and land is relatively inexpensive, all right? I'll make other videos about that. Make no mistake about it, this is not easy. It's intense, but are you up to the challenge? That's the question you need to ask yourself. Okay, why did you go from writing code to more account management? I learned early on that salespeople had the best deal. I was behind a desk. It was sunny in California. I had Napa, I had Yosemite, I had all these places, and I had people on social media living lives, not fake lives, people that actually knew that were living these lives, who had freedom, and I wanted to do that. So I was writing code and I had deliverables, and I would watch the salespeople go out to lunch and eat sushi, taking clients out, or flying over to a consumer electronics show, going out to all these cool restaurants and gambling in Vegas and having a good time, and then coming back to the office, and sometimes not even coming back to the office because they had a meeting or whatever it was. And I figured, wow, salespeople have a better job. You know why? Because they also make commission, and a lot of times they make more money. I realized that I was working harder than a lot of those people. Now, if I had been remote earlier on, maybe my job would have been a lot less hours, but at the time, that's when I decided I'm going into account management and sales and see what that's like. How did you learn sales if you hadn't done it going from engineering? Okay, let me teach you sales. You listen to a customer, and a customer has a problem, they have a pain point, you figure out what that pain point is, and you offer them a solution that's gonna ease that pain point, and you just made a sale. The rest is presenting updates to management on company-approved slide decks. You can learn this stuff. Don't be intimidated by that. Sales is something you can learn by watching a few YouTube videos and reading a book, and you can get in there, and people will give you a lot of leniency when you first get into a job. It's hard to get fired when you first get into a job. What types of jobs have you worked the least? Not all jobs are created equal. You need to figure out what jobs work for you. That's why you get a second remote job and don't quit the first. That's the best advice I can give you. What would happen if they found out you had 2 jobs? You'd get fired, understandably. Now remember, I took a huge risk doing this, and if you're doing this, you're taking a huge risk too. But if you have a good situation, your first job, you need to think twice about it, and you need to protect that first job. That's why I said don't update your LinkedIn, because if you update it and somebody sees it and you lose that good thing, then you're in a bad position. So protect it. I didn't want to be a bad employee. I just want to increase my money so that I could make investments. I've said it many times, but you got to remember what the goal was here. So I went ahead and took the risk. How'd you learn this? I had never heard of anybody doing this when I did it. This was 2019. At the time, there might have been people doing it, but I hadn't heard about it. So I just started doing it almost as a social experiment, almost as an experiment to see what would happen. I just put my feet in the water, and eventually I was swimming. And that's the best way to do a lot of things. Okay, I'm not even remote at one job. What's the first step? Change jobs. That's the first step. I mean, even if you're looking for a raise, the best way to get a raise, not just 2% or 5% or even 10%, is to switch jobs. In the engineering world, because I know a lot of people who have started with an excess salary and they changed jobs and they were surprised to see that they got a 25 or 50% raise just by switching over. Will this be available forever? I actually think no. I think there's a time limit on people doing this. I think that companies are gonna get wiser, and I think there's so much technology to make this happen. There's also technology to stop this from happening. And I think that there's gonna be a lot more clauses, and people are gonna be looking out for this just to make sure. I think HR people are gonna be doing checks and maybe even phone calls. Get in while the getting's good. Be a good employee if you can at each job, and then take that money and give yourself some passive income so you don't have to work anymore. All right, so if you haven't yet, watch my other video on having 2 remote jobs. Please leave a comment if you have any other questions. Thank you. We'll see you next time.